Well, the same thing goes for this upper part, the mesencephalon, the midbrain, which is where the migraines come from, right? That mesencephalon is the stalk of the brain, right? And if you look at it, if you cut it and you look at it and say, oh, look, this part right here becomes the occipital lobe. This part right here becomes the back part of the temporal lobe. This part in here, you know, you can literally chart what it creates and that. And if you see it that way, then you know why, oh my gosh, whenever I've got a headache and it's from the migraines, and I've got the pounding and I've got the sensitivity to light, sound, smells, taste, and all of that, it's turning on the brain. It's not just the midbrain, right? It's jacked it up in a very ugly way and that. And so that'll be helpful in your neuro journey.
Okay.
Okay. What questions do you have so far?
I do not have any questions.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. The dizziness problem that you've got lightheadedness, and then you've got you didn't put disorientation, but we had arrived at that you're moving.
Yes.
And we had used Duck Bunny.
Yes,
and
Duck
it worked.
Bunny.
Right. Well, I've got 4 major. Duck Bunny is only one of those. And I've got an app that's really cool too, that will not only be using that to knock down the symptoms strategically, right? But we're also going to be using them to build up that part in the right parietal lobe. It's called the PIBC. And it's the major player in balance. Like I said over the phone, the left side is all speech, and it's got no real estate for balance. And so we put the balance in the parietal lobe because that's your sense of where's my body in space, and then it puts it together with our world and all of that. So when you have a problem with your physical body, knowing where it is, that part of the map that it contributes to is screwed up too, and that. And so we'll be working with that. Have you experienced any spinning?
Yes.
Okay. When do you normally have spinning?
When I wake up in the morning.
Okay.
And I think it's because I lay flat. I'm not elevated at all. I don't use a pillow.
Good.
I use a neck
Good.
thing.
Good.
And I think I'm just getting full of fluid at night. And then when I wake up, because sometimes I wake up and I have vertigo so bad I walk into the walls. I can't even, it's like I have to crawl to the bathroom.
Yeah. Now, when you have the vertigo in the morning, are you moving or is the world moving?
I honestly can't tell because I'm on a boat and it's like, and I don't know, is it?
Okay.
It's me because you know. So I don't know.
Well, I don't know.
I don't know if it's my perception of the world is moving or not.
But because it's positional, and that I'm going to assume it's possibly that you've got both.
Okay.
That you've got a peripheral problem and a central problem. We know you got a central problem.
Okay.
We know that what we did helped, right?
Right.
But you could also have a peripheral problem, at the same time. And if you've got some BPPV, which is, the little calcium carbonate crystals in the canal, and that would be positional, right? I get into that position, and then I'm in that position over a long period of time, and then I try to come up, and as I come up, those little crystals move, and it affects the fluid and all of that, and there's a mismatch. And I think we talked about mismatch, didn't we? Right? That mismatch, because this one is jacked up because of the crystals, and this one's running normal, and it's going, this does not jive, and that's where that symptom of vertigo comes from.
Yes, if I lay on this side, I can't lay on my sides because my neck gets too messed up, so you kind of like this for so long. So when you get it to where you lay on your side, if I lay here, I know if I'm starting to relax, I have to stop. But if I lay here, it's like, oh, I feel so much better on my back. Oh, I gotta move. And I go to this side, it's like, oh,
And you see, and that sounds like potentially. So we're gonna check that. And the nice thing about that is if it is, we can usually knock it out in one or two therapies on that. Because all we're doing is just moving those crystals down and dumping them back where they belong so they can be resorbed.
Okay.
And going through my, I've gone through a diplomate program and a fellowship program, and I'm in the middle of another fellowship program, and I had no idea how many people actually have it but don't even know it because they don't get vertigo. Why? Because their brain is running so well and so hot that it looks around and says, no, we're not spinning. The world's not spinning. Shut it down. If you've got a good brain. But then as the brain gets depressed for whatever reason, then all of a sudden I got it. And so it's kind of interesting to find people that have had it for decades and didn't even know it.
Wow.
So, but yeah, we'll check that. Okay. And what's really interesting about the vestibular system, that contributes to the drive on the muscles that give you rigidity against gravity. And it's the first thing that's ready to grow neurologically when you're born. Mom takes you and puts you on her chest, and for the first time, gravity's coming through your head this way. And all of a sudden,
yeah.
And so the brain has the brain stem and the vestibular nuclei have to get used to that and start to respond by changing the tone of the muscles in your spine. And so when that happens, it's driving those tracks that do that within the nervous system and go to those muscles, but it's also activating a response to a need. If you're doing something, you're going to have blood flow, fuel supply, right? Mm-hmm. And so at the same time, it's setting up these highways that are going to be the foundation of all of the nervous system, the vestibular motor system is, and it sets up the fuel supply. The sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system gets inlaid at that time because you need it, right? Mm-hmm. Then you start crawling. Mom puts you on the hip, that's next. And all of a sudden, your neck's doing good, but your butt and body, and then you're starting to get rigidity, and that's good. And then mom starts to lean, and we're leaning with her. And then after a while, mom will lean, and we lean away, kind of like a counterweight part of mom, and each one of those is steps of development, within the circuitry and the pathways and the fuel supply for that. Then we get on the floor and we look up. And then we're developing different areas of the spinal system and the neurological systems that support it. And all of this is involuntary. And just about nobody understands that in this world.
Wow. Right?
And so that involuntary nervous system we call the extrapyramidal nervous system. The pyramidal is the brain, but the extrapyramidal is the brainstem, cerebellum, and the spinal cord tracts. Yes?
Mark, Kate, and Brooks ready. All three of them.
Very good. Okay, so that's why that system is so important. When that system falls, it doesn't matter who you are, it doesn't matter how old you are. When that system falls, everything goes to crap because it has a fuel supply. So the fuel supply goes down. And so that's why it's one of my major concerns, but also like when I'm building little kids, who have learning disorders or behavioral disorders, when I'm building them, that stays constant in our therapies. I'm going to build that system. I want, instead of a dirt bike path, I want a 6-lane highway, right? Because the better we get that, the better the rest of the nervous system can be. That makes sense? Mm-hmm. And that is a part of that system that was very intriguing, right? 400 million nerve fibers, that's a part of that. Okay. And that's why your brain just lights up. You get up, everything's moving on the right side, it's driving the right cerebellum, which is attached to the left cortex, and it jacks it up. And the same thing on this side, right? And it's jacking up the right side. And so we are working with the weak system. Let's say you have a weak left brain. And we'll just pull that out of the air because you said dyslexia. And if you got a weak left brain, your right cortex is going to be weak. And so if that's, or your right cerebellum, if that's the case, I can jack up that cortex, but then it is going to dial back down Because it depends on the drive from the cerebellum. And so at the end of the day, I'm not just going to have to jack this up, I'm going to have to jack this up. So like, let's say I've got an Olympic gymnast and a tumbler. I need to turn this one into an Olympic gymnast so that it's driving that side. Now let's backpedal a little and look at the migraine, right? The migraine is that midbrain jacked up on one side. So it's like this. Why is it jacked up? The other side isn't. Well, that's because the cerebellum is driving the appropriate cortex and it tells it to shut up. So your right is telling it to shut up. Shut up, shut up, shut up, shut up, right? And this side is running really weak because the cerebellum's driving it weak, and therefore it starts to ramp up by comparison. And that's where we get that hypersensitivity system. And so we can say, okay, we'll get the migraine. Okay? But then we got, well, the real issue is the brain isn't doing that. It isn't telling it to shut up. Okay, well, we'll jack it up, but it's dependent on the cerebellum. So now you can see we're getting to the why rather than the what.
Excellent.
That makes sense?
Yes.
Very good. I have a brilliant assistant. His name is Brian. He just came back from Mayo Clinic. He had cancer, and just the sweetest guy, and that. And of course, he now shaves his head because he lost his hair. And so, just so you know, he has 3 new nicknames. Do Be Gone. Hair repellent, and the one he likes the best is the Loch Ness Monster.
Oh, that's fun.
That's his favorite. That's his favorite. So, I have a kid that I'm teaching to speak. He's 26 and he had a brain injury when he was a baby, and we're getting him to talk. Well, things were rolling, and all of a sudden I did an insult. He just started laughing, and all of a sudden he started talking more clear. So now every time we are insulting back and forth, and came up with some.
Does he have a brother?
I believe he does.
Yeah, see, that's that banter you got going on
That's
with your
right.
brother.
And I'm the oldest brother. So. And so what was the newest 2? Vomit Slurper and Stinky Sock Sniffer.
Oh, that's good.
So imagine him trying to say that.
Oh, yeah.
Stinky Sock Sniffer.
I'm going to make my actors try to say that. Stinky sock sniffer. Say, you can't.
I'm going to have Brian take x-rays on you.
Okay.
And they've already told you, what it runs and all that.
Yes.
And that he's going to take that. As soon as you're done, you'll come back in here.
Okay.
All right?
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? You bet.